Let's
So
begin.
welcome everybody. Welcome back to our how-to sessions. For those who are new, it's an open forum where we can openly ask questions from any level, top, beginner to elite. We ask to keep things organized. That of course you raise your hand, I bring you into the light. You ask your questions, then we share into the conversation. If you do not want, you I have Robert into the chat that will also answer the questions, so you can ask them there freely. Everything that we capture, I basically make available on a series of marketing asset links created through Nowsite that I will be sharing. I haven't uploaded yesterday's session yet. I'm having a little bit of technical issues there that I'm going to be solving. Just need to free some space on this computer so I can proceed. After a while, it accumulates. I didn't think about that. Um, for those who were here yesterday, we were having a very interesting conversation, and I think that it would be appropriate to continue on that route. There's a few add-ons, also updates or information answers that I got that would help us in that regards. But first, I'll start with general questions if there's any, and then we'll continue where we left off so that we can go and continue on the knowledge that we were building yesterday. Any questions, general question related to any topic of Now site before we dive into that conversation around the CRM and the list that we left it yesterday? None? Okay. As usual, if there are some questions as we progress, and I expect today there will be a lot, you will ask and I will answer. Yesterday, I started something and ended up in a little bit of a war zone, not really. It was fun. And I think it's something that we need because the conversation around the list, the conversation around the CRM, around managing your overall workflow is really what we ended up having a conversation around. Uh, we left off on the idea of if the tool has limitation that you want to go beyond, you can look at other marketing tool. But that said, we have to understand what we are using here, the limitation, and also how the tool was made. Okay. One of the things that was a big turning point is what happens in the list. More importantly, when we erase lists that are connected to marketing asset. Um, it's actually something that we're not supposed to be able to do. I inquired directly with the tech and brought up the conversation yesterday. And as things progress, this will be put back in order. You will not be able to erase a list that is connected to a marketing asset because both of them are intertwined. If that has happened, then we have covered a few workaround to create a new dish list and how to track basically the conversation or the clients that interacted within that list. Go ahead, Arba.
Something else I noticed, even on that screen that you have right there, and I can't
Mm-hmm,
remember if it was there before, but do
mm-hmm.
you see it says website under total contacts? Is that, do you see that there? It says
Total
under total
contacts website.
contacts.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that new? Because I think that's how the connection between the contacts and the website, the asset, as you're calling it. And remember, that's what we were talking about is you should not be able, that's what you just said, that they're
Mm-hmm.
going to fix it, that you should not be able to delete contacts that are tied to the asset. I didn't recall seeing where it showed the asset, so I was
Okay.
just curious.
I'm going to
That looks
time in
new.
on that. As you saw, what I was doing right now is actually going over my list to take a look at that. Most of my marketing asset I have to put forward always stem from a website. Okay. So you are 100% right in the fact that the list and the fact that it's listing the website tab implies that this list originally was created in tandem with a marketing asset. Okay, what I'm going to do actually to put that to the test because I'm not going to assume to have all the answers. So we're going to test it right away, right? So here, for example, I'm going to do import of a list quickly, and we'll see the difference, right? So here, for example, boom, 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 just a speed to this process, call it testing, uh, testing assets. And this is great. We'll get a few answers in real time and discover also some workarounds, okay? So created this list. This one is an import as opposed to what we just came from, list that would have been generated from an asset, okay? And we'll go back to the, oops, sorry, the list. And give it some time. Now, one of the things I wanted to address as a workaround around those lists, uh, we'll wait for it to appear there, but notice this here. This is actually an old asset, okay? Coming back to what we have put in place to help you navigate your interaction across your marketing assets or your lists, okay? Granted, if this list is not connected to a marketing asset, this won't happen. But here, for example, the list being connected to the marketing asset. And one of the issues of the case study that we discussed yesterday was the one brought up with by John, the fact that I have all these marketing assets, all these pages of website. And if I'm looking for a list, how can I manage that? Right? Now, first thing first, if you have named your asset and got into the habit of naming your asset properly, you can always search here directly by the name asset. You also have the option of organizing them by first to last. Okay. By default, you'll notice that the list here is at first glance organized chronologically. So these assets will follow basically the sequence in which they were created. But you'll notice that this asset, the Amabelpo, which is a cosmetic website that I was building for a client, that is actually on my third page. Oh, let me just go back to that. Uh, sorry, it's on my second page. Okay. So it's not one of the most recent assets that I have created. So it's this one. Okay. So it's not one of the most recent asset that I created. But if somebody interacts with that asset, it is automatically brought to the top of my lists, which is exactly what I tested here. Okay. So for example, one of the cause that would have you look at your list would be the notification that you would receive. If I have a number of assets that I'm maintaining and all working, all being promoted, well, I'm tracking the acquisition through the automation here. Somebody will put their information as the AI basically, or as the system gets their information, it will register them on my daily checklist. Okay. Once that is done, they also will appear in my contact list as the last entry. I was testing this one here. Okay. And you can see that if I go to the list, oh, okay, I'll do this in real time. Anyways, it's going to be even better. So here I have this list. I'm going to come to this form and I'll call myself, well, in this case, I'll say Arba. Uh, so for those who have been using the platform around a long time and basically have accumulated process, well, we have a system to help you sort out your acquisition and to find basically the list that are priority to you. So here, the page owner is being notified. Takes a little bit of time. My internet is a little slow here for the notifications, but we'll let it run. Just going to make sure that everything is activated. So new prospects, leads, system activation. I usually activate all of them. Okay, perfect. We'll let it run. I'm just going to come back to the contact. Let it refresh. Did I? No, I don't have you as
There she
ah,
is.
yes, I do have you in the system. That was not the good way to do so because it's most likely going to add to your profile. Let me just go back here because you're in my system. Um, I'll see. Somebody had a question? Try
No, I don't
this.
see any.
Oh yeah, it's because Arba, the name is already in my database. So it most likely went and updated her information. I'll check it out, but it didn't count it as a new acquisition because of the name. Be careful about name repetition. That usually leads to these type of things. This is why it's also always important to ask for first and last name. So if there's many Bobs as they are across the world, the last name will help with that. So here it came through. You can see my daily checklist is letting me know. Where am I here? Came through. Let me refresh. Okay. Taking a little bit of time. I'll let it be here for now. Just going to go back to the contacts.
Aren't they stacked? They're actually
Right here.
stacked.
It's the I was using the old format, so I didn't see the name here, and I didn't have a proper setup. So it says it didn't give me the first name. It gave me contact and went into the email. I have to check out. I have to check basically this form. It's one of our old form, but it was appearing here. I missed it. So the first one you see, Arba at Nowsite.
Yeah.
So this one is just, of course, I have to work on this form. So, but here it's tracking this. But the point that I wanted to make was also what's happening across the list. Here, this list is registering these and keeping them top. Okay. The testing list that I just created came through as the last one, and that doesn't factor in. Okay. So whether you're importing or creating, you will see this. So don't count it as a definite indication of this asset being linked to a list. I think this will change most likely when they correct the mistake, because again, as we are discussing, you won't be able to erase an asset that is actively tied to a list. Also, one thing that we covered around importing and exporting, you cannot export contacts that you acquire through the platform. But as you notice, this one was an imported list. And if I go back, I can export it back out. Questions on that? No questions? Go ahead, Robert.
No, but I did mention in the chat there to Arba and everyone else. I do recall since I've been in Nowsite to see the website there
Mm-hmm.
underneath your total contacts since I've been around, but I've never seen that actually attached to um, any kind of website.
Yeah. Could have been a field that was there. I will also note that since they're doing the workaround, I'll ask if this is a detail that will be kept or be removed, but keep that in mind. Go ahead, Lori.
I was also wondering about the merging list. If you have old assets, Tina asked it last week. If you have old assets on a list and you want to put those people on that, can you take a list wholesale and put it on to, do you have to go individually?
Yeah, it would have to be done individually because what you're looking at are specific grouping of contact, right? So what you do basically, since you have the ability of exporting the list that you are generating, so if you want to combine them, export them, go to Excel, condense them, purify them, bring them back, name it as the general list for that audience. For example, I've done that across our Now Site workshop and the newsletter. Often enough, I have to download, merge, and then put them back in an updated list if that is a goal, or I just keep the list separate because in the end, what you're doing is each of these lists will follow through specific email sequence. The real point of organizing a list is that I'm going to be talking to you all because of that specific interest. If you are in the list and you have multiple interests that we're having a conversation, with and that you're comfortable, then I might just put you in this list with everybody in the same area of interest. In this list, I'm talking to people about marketing, wellness, any other thing, and they're all aware. Okay. In the end, these type of lists technically are retention type list. Remember that to better organize yourself, technically, yes, you have no choice when you're creating a marketing asset. It must have its list attached to it because there's a conversation sequence that you're preparing for. But other than that, when you're importing lists, in the end, you only require 3 lists per opportunity. Industries, even I would say. The general list, the opted list, and the converted list, right? The general list is where the potential prospect that will convert will be. The opted list is where I wanted them to end in. And that usually will happen again based on how well I am managing this relationship, right? So if I open this here, for example, and I just got a notification that I have acquired this person, then I know now that these tools that we discussed yesterday are becoming very important, right? If I choose to message this person to the platform, I'm creating a history of interaction. If I'm sending them hot links to test the engagement, I know where now I have tried to funnel them. If I'm using email campaigns and I'm trying to get you to opt in to a list, that's the list that I'm monitoring. And it comes down to why that list moves to the top, the first pages with the interaction date. Right? I started a marketing asset. I started this last week, for example. I'm tracking it through the week. I'm sending it actively across the board to targeted people. I'm also promoting it generally. Well, I'm looking at what is happening in that specific list. Mind you, the people that are coming to this list won't actually remain in this list in the end, because if they are converted and they need to be moved to something else after the conversation, then I will move them to the list. They came in talking about Annabelle Po. We talked about, well, Mialka Wellness, they opted more for that product after the conversation. Well, I'm going to update that. And I'm going to note, spoke to on the date of and came to a new interest. These become important. So then, if ever you have an issue, because the big questions that we had yesterday and or what we covered was in the end, we don't come into our CRM looking for lists. We come into our CRM looking for specific individuals, either because they reached out to us or across our board, a notification came in and we now want to come back and manage that relationship. So we'll always start here and go into these CRM tools. Go ahead, Robert.
The other thing that I just want to mention that's really cool about what you just showed, in case people don't know, is that when that happens, let's say they're in my CRM and they say, oh, well, I want some information about whatever you posted on Facebook. You could do that same thing, click it. And if you have that campaign set up, emails will go out right away.
You see? Okay. And even the note, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's very useful. Very useful.
Yes. Because first, sometimes we think about it in numbers, right? I can do it easily on paper and pen and a book for 10 clients. 100 clients, it becomes a little bit more tedious. 200, 400s, that becomes the issue. Here, coming back to what we have here, technically, in all honesty, in this space, we are most likely engaging in real time up to 10% of this total contact list. In real time, 10% of 8,000 people is already massively a workload. Right? So if you have 30,000 and I see client list with 30,000, I'm like, wow, okay, this is great, a great pool of conversion. But if you're doing customer service right? You understand that there is a value, a number of key people that you're interacting with. And at one point, you're going to need to duplicate the process if you're actually handling 8,000 people in real time. And this is what we want. This is the level of success in business that we want. But this is also the path that we're growing, right? So keep that in mind. Often enough, these numbers are an indication of a great pool, a general pool of conversation, right? And as we go through the process, we know who we're talking to. We come and seek them out and keep building these conversations. The most important thing, technically, when we come and we start in the beginning of the day, is basically these. What is happening, right? Here, for example, you can see that across the board, there were a few new acquisitions lately. I need to go take a look at who are these people, what I'm going to be doing with them, and such. This is part of the automation, these people that are coming in. It's part of an automation process. Again, it's the last time I spoke to. It's a very hard market that I'm targeting, people that don't operate on social media, but most likely, most of the time, on phone. Go ahead, Dina. Dina, you have a question?
Yeah, Dinah. Yes,
Dina,
sir.
sorry.
No. So, I'm going way off of what all this is about.
It's good.
Forms. We talked about this before on uploading a form,
Okay.
like like if we do a form, uploading a
Uh,
document, I mean. So if we do
document.
a form and I need somebody to upload something, say I'm doing energy and I need them to upload the energy bill so I can see it. You showed how to where you can download a form, and I think letting that be accessible to them. But is there a feature that they can upload a form,
No.
upload a document, I mean?
No. The client, you wouldn't be from the tools that we offer. The call to action wouldn't give you the opportunity for them to upload document directly. In cases like that, this is when you're forced to look at offline resources, or not offline, but resources outside of Nowsite. For example, I'll show
Yeah,
you.
I found like in Google they have that
Hey,
where I
you
can
read my mind. You read my
uh-huh
mind.
and
Because
upload,
here,
but
for
it's
example,
not in the phone. Yeah.
yes, that is basically where you want to go to. For example, initially in our website, our now site, how to website, I had embedded a form, a Google form, right? So what you're going to be using basically is the, where is it?
No, I don't want like to embed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get information from them, whether it be, an energy bill, whether it be uh
Mhm.
just anything. I would like that to be able to be uploaded because there, like you say, there's other platforms that does it, and there are other CRMs that does
Mhm.
it also. And I
Yes,
was wondering,
absolutely.
if
Yeah.
now
No,
have that.
and the question is, we don't offer the ability to get the client to upload directly content. The idea is that basically the option that you offer, and this is where I was going for the answer because you covered that, you can use a Google form, and then you see here, code snippet, you can embed it in any of our asset. So that becomes something that can be part of the conversation.
But in the Google form, there is no code snippet for, I
Let me
didn't
de-
notice.
let me demonstrate. Okay, I'll
Okay,
do this quickly. It's going to be a default one. So as you can see, I'm opening the Google options here. Am I for
go down the
forms,
form.
right?
There it
Now
is.
you would want to format the form and the information that you want it to carry over, right? After doing that, I'm going to show you how to embed. Okay, so here, this is done. Okay, you see here, publish. This is how you publish the forms. Let me just see
Wait, I
here.
didn't see. I missed. Okay, do it again.
Publish. Well,
Publish.
publish is
Okay.
when you made active. But let me just
Uh-huh.
remember the step myself. Second here. 1 second here. Okay, wait. No, thanks. Oh, I'm not sharing the screen for the
I can
Google
see
form.
it. The form. I see the form.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So 1 second here. You remember here, sorry. After publishing, of course, to make it live, you're going to go to the three dots you see, and then you see here, embed HTML. Okay,
Okay.
so you're going to hit that. It's going to give you basically the HTML code. Here,
Okay.
you already have some basic setups for the height and the width. Okay, usually what I'll do first is copy the form. Okay, go back to the platform. Okay, choose where you want to embed it, grab the code, place it, and then paste the code in. Okay, so it's going to display the form. It's not published. I did publish it. Go back to it. So publish. Okay, now it's officially published. Okay, got it. Here, embed, copy, go back, and paste. What's happening here? Need a little bit of time. I'll see. There you go. So you see, it will appear. And at that point, this is when you can decide, well, you see here, for example, I'm not seeing the whole of the form. Okay, usually what I'll do is I'll go into style and I will play around with the spacing first. Once again here, I'll go here, style and spacing here, and start adding basically margin to expand on that. But usually first I would say use basically those to try to see, depending on the length of the form. Okay, so this is where you want to go. It's a simple process. It's a free tool. Create the form, embed it. Go ahead, Robert.
So I was just going to add, I've used Google Forms like this before. I don't know that you have the ability to actually upload a document. What I was mentioning inside of the chat there is that, first off, you don't want someone to upload their documents when they're going to fill out a form. You want the least path of resistance, right? So
no, so this is a form that I'm sending to them
sorry?
to specifically do that. So we done went through all that. Now I have the form for them to upload.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Say again.
I say this is a
totally
form for
blew
them
my
to.
train of thought.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. You interrupted
This
me.
is
Go
a
ahead.
form for them to specifically do that, to upload their documents. So it's not like at the beginning, it's a form that's sent to them to upload the documents.
Sure.
Definitely.
If that's what you were saying.
I think you both are meeting in what you are putting forward, in sense that Robert was saying, be careful with directly sending a form in the first part of a contact, because you want the conversation to be easy for the prospect, in a sense that, for example, if I'm going to get you to fill out a form, I could have you come to the meeting with these conversation points, but your process is different. You already warmed up the conversation and prepared the prospect for that call to action, correct?
Yeah, let them know that they need to upload their form.
Exactly. So really the conversation or the solution falls there. We recommend free tools. Take a look at that. Again, Robert mentioned something that is to explore, because as far as using these forms, I haven't seen necessarily the option of collecting document. That said, there are so many options to choose from when you're looking at Google. You can look at the drive and what it offers there in terms of go to this drive, upload your document. Right? So there's a process that can be put in place if you cannot find necessarily the option for free outside Google Forms. What I would recommend, maybe book a meeting and we'll discuss the approach and see the flow of work leading to that asset or that call to action together. How's that?
Sounds good. Thanks, Virgil.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Robert.
Any other questions in those directions? No? Okay. So big takeaway, again, we cannot erase, or we should never erase, a list that is connected to a platform. And as we progress, we will see that take even more effect. We won't be able to delete them as it was. Uh, 1 second here. Did we just go through an update as we were discussing this? Or am I seeing doubles? Let me just refresh this. Yeah, okay. So there was a switch here. Everybody noticed that for a minute this went from created to website. Well, I
I saw
refresh.
it.
Yeah. So the guys are most likely taking action as we are speaking. Have to give them credit where it's due. And also, one thing that was said yesterday that made me smile a little bit, and I want us to take that in account when we are making requests for improvement to be made. A simple line for sorting out a list alphabetically or any other filter is workload for our guys because you're tracking interaction details, criterias across many fields, across the platforms. So when we say, oh, it's a simple thing, I hope that we have done coding before we say that, or it's an injustice because there's a lot of things happening across the platform and we want to do a simple thing. And as you see, they have done things in perspective of making the workflow easy. We have to make sure that we adapt our workflow to also what the tool does before we call them limitation that require more tools. Okay, this is very important because in the end, if we are engaging a customer, this allows us access to the information. Depending on how well we are engaging and keeping track of these interactions, we can never really lose sight of where we were at the time where we left off with this specific client. And this is really what it means. CRM, client relationship management. If I'm actively managing the situation, the relationship and keeping track of it properly, in the event of an accident, for example, in the case discussed that you brought forward, I accidentally erased the list and I needed to follow up with these contacts. Well, these contacts beyond the list are in the contact. And if I have taken action with them through email sequence, well, there is a workaround to find these contacts again and locate them, bring them back into our CRM and identify them, move them across basically our marketing assets or the lists. Okay, so there's always simple workaround. I am curious to see if there are other case studies or situation that we want to take a look at. In all fairness, in this case, I would want to understand the path that leads to that inquiry and the solution that we're looking for. For example, Kim mentioned last time that having folders for lists would be something that would be great, right? And I wanted to know, okay, well, having folders, it's creating folders for bigger issues, bigger assets file to manage. Why would be that necessary? Where are we going with this? And what is the tool already aligning ourselves to do before we look outside of that? Go ahead, Arba, with a question. Case study, a hard one.
No, it's the
No.
same one, but just because I do a lot of training
Okay.
and I have levels,
Okay.
okay? So if I have people that opt in to the first level of training,
Okay.
and then I may not know when I'm going to do the second, the second level or a master class, let's say.
Okay.
So I create a list, or the list is created for people that opted in and registered for the first class.
Perfect.
It would be great if you're asking for a case study or whichever, that
Mhm.
if I wanted to then send another email to a subset of that list or all of the people in that list, instead of it would be great if I could duplicate that list, basically, duplicate the list, call it something else. Because that's how I ended up inadvertently deleting that list, was because I was actually trying to do a subset. And yes, I know the workaround is that I could go in that list and then I'd have to add everybody individually to the second list. So I'm just pointing a case of where it would be
Absolutely.
more efficient if I'm able to, duplicate a list to use it for a different campaign.
Okay, I understand the positioning of the case study, and now I want to go back, okay, because you've spoken of a general list where everybody is, and then of a subset of client that you're specifically targeting, correct?
Not really correct. If I have a generalist, which I don't have a generalist though, if I have 1,000 people, but maybe
1,000 people.
50 of them attended a training. So
Okay.
that's the first list,
Okay,
right?
so let me talk about that first. Okay, because there is a mechanic or a step that we're not counting in this process that will lead to the next optimized approach. So I have a list of 1,000. Coming back to what I said, that's my general list. 50 of these people opted in or came to my training, and I can account for these people. What happens after the training took place? I come back here, I manage these 50 people, I put them into a separate list. They still belong to the general list, but they have converted efficiently, at least to the first step, by coming to this session. So I have now this specific group that I'm focusing on. So technically, after the initial meeting, where I generally probed and invited these 1,000 people in, they came in to my Zoom meeting or responded favorably in a way. I'm able to track them, not just by numbers, but by name. Once that is done, after the session, of course, the after course maintenance that I have to do, because I just don't close my station and okay, job done. No, after each hour presentation here, for example, there's a workload for me. Going over these, knowing who was here, and what possibly, if necessary, email I would have to send. That is the maintenance step that brings the 50 out of the lot of 1,000. And actually, that list of 50 is now my second list because there's still 950 people in that list I haven't converted. So that general list is not going to start moving. Maybe I'll keep adding people in that list. So next week, there'll be 1,500. But what I'm really tracking at this point now is who's converting from that list. And my 50 is tend to grow. Now, if I erase that, there's a workaround. But before even coming to the questions of needing folders within folders, that is nullified. And I stand on that. It's part of the process.
Yeah, but that did not really address what I was saying. What
In
I
what
was
sense?
saying is that if I had 50 people that came to the class, or
Okay.
no, 50 people that registered, right?
They registered.
And
How did they
maybe
register?
yeah, and
How
then
did they
maybe
register?
25. Now I want to target these other 25 for the master class. Then I have to individually go into that 50 and then put them in the second list for the master class.
Okay, but this is where the question again comes into play, Arba. Okay, because I think I'm answering your question, so we're going to take it one step at a time.
Well,
We went from
actually, it's okay because I'm not really asking a question. You
okay
were just asking for a case study
study.
of making some extra changes, whatever. I don't. It's okay. I'm
Okay,
good.
perfect.
Yeah.
No
It
worries.
wasn't a question.
Okay, it wasn't a question. Fine. So what I'll do is I'll just elaborate on that conversation because it's going to be good work ethic for everybody in here. Okay, coming back to that general conversation and that trend, this brings us back to really organizing the workload and your acquisition system and also the approach around what you're doing, right? So if I'm inviting you, if I'm putting a number of people in a list, it's because they have a shared interest or I am targeting them with a same goal. Okay, so this is my general list. This is the first list that you would have. This is the list by default you would create. I'm marketing this opportunity to the grand public. I'm not sure who's going to accept yet or how far it's going to go, but I'm going to need to make sure that everybody that I'm targeting or that could be interested is in that first general list. So that's the first list. Usually, what happens if we're starting from scratch, it's usually the first marketing asset that we will generate from our business profile. I came into this place with this idea. I want to promote it. It's an empty list. I'm going to create an asset so that I can first start sharing that interest and getting people to opt in, or actually start putting in people. Well, this person has an interest in marketing. And this is where, for example, the nav tool comes in. If I go out there with an interest to start putting people in a list to target them generally for conversation, first list. If I'm doing this from nav and I don't want to create a marketing asset, I can start directly by creating a contact list. But again, in line with what we're doing, using the full tool of the flow. If I'm going to market something, I'm going to need an asset. I'm going to need to track it. I'm going to need to engage with the people within. So hence, everything starts here. General list. Now, I have that general list. I'm nabbing people. I'm putting them in this list, or I am prospecting with the prospecting tool for those who have it and putting people in this general list. In comes the conversion strategy. To this list, I have the intention of marketing a specific email campaign. And this is often enough a step that we miss or that we don't understand. When we're generating or creating an email campaign, it always will have a button at the end. This is the second list. If I'm inviting you to the webinar and I'm asking you to register, confirm that you want to be there because the seats are limited, then this is the first tracking gate for this conversation, moving people from the general solicitation list through the conversion list. So for example, I am encouraging everybody to start creating their webinar events. That would require a capture page. We are doing webinars on a weekly basis. This is how you register if you're interested for more information and for notification when the webinar takes place. People will opt in generally. Maybe I'll come, maybe I won't. I just want to be informed. Generalist. You're going to receive this email with a set of instructions to now firmly commit. And I'm tracking that across the board. Right? So as you appear, for example, here, I'm sending you to my team section. Then regularly, when I'm sending that, whether I know the people that are in the list or not, and technically I should know because I'm going to take a look at the names quickly and then shoot it out. Well, then I'm tracking basically what is happening. If it's in the team, in this case, I'm going to go to the team manager and start looking at basically who has come in recently. If it's not that, if I'm sending them across the board, across assets, right? Then this is when I'm starting to look at my list and who is coming through these lists. And in comes this conversation. Even if this marketing asset was created on page 18 of my websites, when people start interacting with that asset, it comes top of the list in terms of interactions. So I'm not looking for the list. I'm monitoring the activity on the first page here, which is tied to the assets. Now, when that conversation takes place, after basically the second meeting, if there's a different asset that I'm going to funnel you to, I will offer that. If not, you will go from the conversion list to the retention list. These are people that have converted. These are people that are interested. They've came to the first, the second. There's no stopping that momentum as long as I keep that relationship and that interaction going, right? So general information, long-term email campaign. Even by this explanation, I've outlined and reinforced the last thing that I said around email campaign. Short, medium, long-term. Short, I'm trying to convert you to a specific list of specific opportunity, a specific opt-in. That leads to the medium so that I can test and reinforce the relationship. And then I put you on cruise control. So 1, 2, 3. Across the board, technically, this is what we have. A general list, which usually is tied into a marketing asset. And if I'm importing a list, most likely I'll name that list in tandem with that marketing asset, right? So Nowsite library, my Nowsite student course list. So I know that the people that are there are actually students. They're taking part in these exercises. So far, so good. Okay, so for new beginners, I think the work ethic at the beginning is what you continue and carry over. Okay, of course, your workflow, your work strategy with the updates will tend to vary a little bit, but remain the same. Coming back to what Nowsite has been doing over the years, we haven't really changed anything across the process. We just made it easier in a sense that if you didn't know anything about the business, you would be on social media, maybe looking at people, and at one point you would start taking information to keep track of these people and find them easily. You're going to friend them. You're going to try to send them a message. You're going to start creating that list of contact. Now it's easier to do. At the beginning, for example, before we had the social media tool, well, you done your marketing here and then it went there. We have integrated that, right? So these are integrations that actually are making the network marketer world or life a lot easier. Okay, by default. The business is not just intended for network marketer. Entrepreneurs of any interest can basically follow through. And it actually becomes a lot easier for entrepreneurs because often enough, it's one business that I'm working actively, unless I'm a serial entrepreneur and I fall into basically the same dynamics of a network marketer. I actively create ideas and I'm going to test funnels in and out. And even as such, there are certain lists that will move and certain that will not move. My converted client list and my retention list usually are set in stone in the sense that I will just keep adding people. I will never delete those lists. The ones that might fluctuate are my general or my acquisition list. Each time I create an asset, I might not need that list, especially if I probe these people enough time and no reaction. Well, I'll delete the list, let them go back in the general pool, or consolidate that in a big pool of medium, cold leads and try to warm up over time when I have nothing to do. Because now having nothing to do, meaning having no leads to go forward, is something that is very hard to fathom now with Nowsite, right? You have the prospecting tool, you can prospect directly from the platform. You have the nav tool, you can prospect directly from social media tool. So you're always looking at the opportunity to create more relationship, thus the need to manage them effectively. Okay. If you're not actively engaging 1,000 plus contact on a regular basis, depending on your strategy, Nowsite is all you need. If you're engaging beyond, then all the power to you. You are in a different tier of business altogether. And yes, we have to talk about what else can be put in play to further basically the momentum that you created for yourself. Success calls for bigger weapons or bigger assets, I would say, bigger tools. And this is what we want eventually, right? So here, keep always that in perspective. The relationship that you'll have across the board when you open these will always be a percentage of it. How many contact this is growing is showing how actively you are bringing people in to try to convert or using the tool to generally prospect. But as you go into the conversion and the retention, usually the conversion list will be smaller than the acquisition list. and the retention list. Why? Because we're transiting, right? You're going to come from general to opt-in, and in the end, I'm going to get you to the retention list, right? So two lists that are constantly growing and intended to be permanent, at least in the approach, are the retention list and the general contact acquisition list, right? From the acquisition, I want to convert depending on the asset. And once a conversion is done, you're in a retention, which follows the conversion interest, which follows the business strategy, which follows the long-term retention plan. Make sense? Formatting your mind around that will have you clarify a little bit more what you can do with the CRM that Nowsite offers. And in terms of maintenance, for example, one thing that is appearing here, all these websites, as I said, are appearing chronologically as you are creating them or as people are interacting with them, right? So for example, if I'm looking for an asset that I haven't used a long time ago, right? So the first thing maybe that I would do is come to my website pages and look, where about in my page is this website. And technically, if it's on the third page, then in my in my list library, most likely going to go to the second page and start from there. Now note, some of these assets, some of these lists, for example, the capture for a list, well, actually I'll say this one here, the CCHAD, right, is a list that is there, but I deleted the asset, right? So when I chose to delete the asset because it's not being used, then I have to delete the list. One of the things also to rate your asset, okay? Because the beauty of an asset is good, but people don't buy its beauty. We look at conversion and views, right? So if you're gonna start sorting out your assets, see which one I should keep, which one I should disregard, I recommend always looking at first, let's look at the traffics, because I'm definitely not going to erase my high traffic assets. These are things that I'm going to come back and start rebuilding on. Why is it that generating so much views as opposed to the others? So if I have pages and pages and pages of assets, maybe I should start looking at them in terms of productivity. Is this one being actively visited, especially if I'm not doing anything because it was on page 18, right? The conversion also is important, right? If I see that this asset is converting more than this asset, then I want to come back and see what is happening here. And the other assets that are not being used are close to going bye-bye. Okay, so these are tools that allows you to create a maintenance here or evaluate what you should be keeping to organize your work on version views. In terms of working properly, brand name or asset names are important. Going forward, understand you have a limitation, and if you are going to quickly want to sort through your assets, the one that you're actively working, name them, keeping in mind that they can be organized from A to Z so that you can track them easily. Okay, and the last option, if you're working on assets, you have first to last. So the first one that was created up to the last or last to first. Okay, so these are options that you want to use, but start looking at managing basically the creative or the marketing asset that you're building. They impact basically your list, as we have discussed, and the lists are a big part of the strategy, the approach. But overall, it is important that we start diving into these client profiles and these tools. Otherwise, we're only half stepping, meaning that we're going out there, we're getting people, we're putting them in the CRM, and then the relationship stops at a meeting, at an email, or a message. There's our sales flow, connecting, building a rapport, and all these technically would have certain assets that we're sending them, intention, notes, tracked through these CRM, the history and such. The rotation allows us to organize ourselves. And if we are organizing our work, it means periodically we're reviewing our assets and making sure that we keep track of how people are moving across our system in general form, from acquisition to conversion to retention. And the retention list is where the gold is long term. Questions? We're 5 minutes from the end. Any feedback, pushback, comment, case study for next time?
Love it, brother. Love it. Good stuff. Things to definitely consider and think about.
Perfect. Shannon, you have a question?
I also
question.
want to say real quickly again, I still think that many of us are overthinking this.
Absolutely. But I think it starts from the beginning. If we didn't line up our duck from the beginning proper, then we have some strays. And we're like, okay, how do I bring this back into the pack? Let's go back to the ABCs. Let's look at what part of the process we skipped. Sorry, Shannon, we overtook your answer. Go ahead, come back into the fold.
That's all right. I had a question on scheduling meetings. So you go on there, they sent me a calendar. Is there any way if I wanted to meet with you to select you?
Oh, well, by default, you're going to come back to me unless I think at this point you request somebody else. I'm
Oh,
the
okay.
top on the list there in my calendar these days. Not busy. You guys are not showing me that love. You're not coming to those meetings. Questions. Please come to these meetings. So yeah, book a date and come through.
You do
Okay,
such a
then
thorough
one
job
other
here.
one other quick thing too is, hey, Robert.
So according to Nowsite, we don't keep Virgil busy enough, so he's the only one who puts up with us. So
Yeah. Robert, your
I'm gonna
post
fix that
about
right now.
your imposter.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did a report and I immediately got a 180-day ban.
What?
A post
Yeah,
about imposter.
and yeah, he had a Facebook imposter, and I reported it for him, and then went back to comment that I did it, and immediately got a 180-day ban from Facebook.
That's odd. That's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely. I would
I
Let's
say.
appealed.
let's chat on Facebook about it or something. Let's
I
talk.
can't get on Facebook, but I just want to let you know because my
Ooh.
account's suspended. So I appealed it. They said they'd get back to me within 48 hours.
Ridiculous. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have LinkedIn?
I do.
Yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so definitely organize a conversation there. I think it's a great thing. Well, not what is happening is a great thing, but this
Right.
conversation is important in the sense that it's direct feedback, and it's most likely something Robert would want to review, and I would want to get a feedback after that to see exactly how we can avoid that. It could be a case study for everybody, something to be careful of.
Well,
Make
I don't
sense?
think also.
I don't
Sorry.
know if it was related or not, but it just happened immediately after.
Right. I don't know that it was related either, but we could talk offline about that. As far as Virgil, as far as your meetings, I don't think that you're getting those because there is no focus on that anymore.
Yeah, true. True. A lot. I mean, it's a good thing in a sense, since Keisha mentioned it. If everybody's feeling at ease with the tool and actively using it, then stands
Well,
to
it also, if you remember when we had that, that was for people that were on the unlimited. So if you're offering it and then there's people that aren't on the unlimited, they shouldn't be taking you up on that offer.
Oh, actually, yeah,
No
just to
focus
correct.
on it is
No,
different.
just to correct that, because yeah, when we had the unlimited, and I think this is good for everybody to know. Maybe that is why you're not using the service. We had the unlimited, when we launched it, there was a different dynamics around the nerd sessions, right?
Right.
We had hours, half an hours, and sometimes even more. Now it's different. It's only 15 minutes. Okay. So, and it's available to everybody across the platform. The only restriction, and you have to adhere to that, you can't book meetings back to back, right? You can only book a maximum of 2 meetings per week, and you have to give it some time. unless there's an emergency, I don't usually see the benefits in having 2 back-to-back sessions with me, because we end up just in a space where we're not actively progressing, meaning that you're not necessarily using the knowledge gain, right? Be careful about that. But it's 2 a week, twice a week maximum, 1 a day. Go ahead.
It actually said if you book more than one meeting at the same time, that it would automatically charge you $50.
Exactly. It's
It's
stated there.
possible, but okay,
Yeah.
but you can book 2 meetings a week if needed.
Exactly. You start on Monday, you take one, we discuss, you take a day, work on what was discussed, and then you come back the next, right? This is when you truly start gaining momentum. Most of the people that will spend back-to-back meetings with me, after a week, we're still the same thing because we're going into an overthinking process. Okay?
So
So
for the
make use of it
unlimited
all.
that's not available?
No, the unlimited is available as well. It's the unlimited
Okay. So
AI for
we don't have a limit for the unlimited, right?
nobody has a limit for for this service. It's standard. Okay, 2 meetings a week, 15 minutes each.
And what I'm asking is that for the unlimited too, or just for everybody? If you have unlimited, you're not paying for that anymore?
No, you're not paying for that anymore unless there's a higher tier of meeting that you're requesting. At one point, they had an extra offer for the nerds. You could book
Right.
more, but again, do you really need more? If you need more, you can pay for that extra time. But again, start with a 2 a week. This is really what I'm offering as the best solutions. Because one thing about it is that if you're spending too much time in the lab with me or in the lab in general, you're not out there in the field where it counts. Right? So that's the idea here. Okay. And that is the trap. Sometimes people will fall into the lab trap, meaning that I'm going to create this thing 3 months in, I'm going to create this thing, but you already had a lot of value to offer from the first week of putting together these assets and conversation. Go ahead, Harba. After that, we'll see us next week.
Yeah, I just was mainly going to say, I think ever since Elizabeth is doing the weekly, the daily My AI, I think that's where probably a lot of people need to be. And then once they get beyond that, then that's when it makes more sense to schedule with you. So that's probably why there's been a decline, is because just like you said, there's people that just go daily to Elizabeth's training and they're still not off of first base.
Okay, well, as it is, one still be ready. I will be here. It does happen by waves, for example. I'll get very busy week, others a little bit of lag. But all in all, these are resources that you want to use. I often recommend if you're having a conversation with support and you're not seeing the end of it, book a meeting. Make the request if they don't offer it directly. Okay. So definitely these are resources across the board. Use them, especially in terms of strategizing. It's not necessarily my mandate, but it's a little bit of information and experience that I can share. At least 2 brains are better sometimes than one on a question, right? So if you have questions around strategy, why not? The marketing is being done by the tool. The creative part, at least, is being done by the tool. The next part is really how well we get into that networking environment, and again, how we use our CRM. In the end, that's the last stage of this tool. I create marketing assets, I market them, people start coming in. I have to build these relationships and maintain them and grow them. The networking part, basically. Good for everybody?
Yeah, Virgil, and thanks, man. You remind me also just go back to my list because I have an older list, and then I see that there's there's still gathering emails in there. There's a couple of them I had forgotten about in a sense, and so to go back there and then to replenish them, to renew them, that's a great reminder because there's still traction on a couple of my lists. So thanks for that reminder. Appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely, it's a pleasure, and everybody in the end. Remember that there's 3 parts to what we're doing. We're going to set it, we're going to run it, and then we're going to maintain. So constantly take a look, update, avoid clutter, and accumulation, basically. I'm going to do a little case study document that I will offer pointers to keep in mind and tips basically across the board as we discuss to do so. And I'll make it available in the course library. I won't make a demo video for that. I think the conversation here that we're having will allow anybody that comes to these sessions to make sense of those documents. And it's just in general good things to keep in mind. Perfect,
Have a great
perfect.
week.
Have a great weekend to you all. And thank you for keep on showing up.
And Virgil, check your WhatsApp.
Yes, I will.
Have a great weekend or great
You
week,
too.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Virgil.
Always a pleasure.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Vicky. I love our community. I'm gonna make a t-shirt. See you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Laurie.